Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Aarna Sahu, host of Aarna's News, where on this podcast channel, I aim to eliminate the gender gap in the STEM fields by featuring inspiring female professionals and highlighting their stories and accomplishments to further encourage girls. Today on episode 90.
And what I've learned is that often other people will project their own limitations onto you, especially when you're a woman. And that's just human nature. That's other people's business. You just have to learn to tune it out. But it's really, really important that you do learn to tune it out because the stories that you tell yourself are vitally important to your mental well-being and to your abilities to succeed.
Today on episode 90, I'm pleased to answer our guest, Liz Snower. She is a co-founder of ICONIQ, the company behind Kuki AI, one of the best-known virtual influencers. Snower previously co-founded CONVRG, a B2B voice and messaging platform that was acquired in 2019. During her prior tenure at the messaging app Kik, she began building conversational products for blue-chip brands, and since 2015 has spoken at various events and conferences, including the FQ Equality Lounge at SXSW, YMS New York City, Fashion Digital New York City, and Adweek X. Snower has been quoted in publications ranging from the Washington Post to Ad Age. Her work has also been covered by Forbes, Yahoo, BBC, Vice, Vogue, and Harvard Business Review. So thank you so much, Liz, for being here today. Before we dive into the questions, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I am Liz Snower, and I'm just really happy to be here.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm super excited to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise.
All right, so my first question for you is tell us a bit about your career path.
Yeah. Well, I guess you could say that my career path is a good example of one that is nonlinear. In my early 20s, I started off my career doing freelance writing. And from there, I got into print journalism. I worked at a weekly newspaper in Orange County, California called The Business Journal. And I was there for a couple of years. And then in 2010, I got the opportunity to pivot to digital and to go work for an e-commerce site called dermstore.com. And given the writing on the wall at the time, which was the apparent reality that print media was quickly becoming a thing of the past, I was really excited to take that role. So in that new position, I managed a team that created editorial content, which was really fun. And I got to do some cool things like, for instance, I went to New York every season for Fashion Week. So Dermstore sold to Target in late 2013. And when all of the C-level executives left about a year later, including my boss, the CMO, I followed suit and I left too. I was at the time about to get married and I thought, hey, maybe this is a good time for a little sabbatical. But I guess it wasn't. I started consulting pretty much right away. And I spent almost a year working for a handful of clients in the beauty industry. And then in the summer of 2015, I was recruited to join the messaging app Kik, which at the time had a few hundred million users and had just raised a Series D round. So I was the first employee in their LA office. And this was a totally new realm for me working at a tech startup. I mean, when I was at Dermstore, I had sort of gotten acquainted with digital product work. You know, it was a startup. And so because of that, everybody was doing stuff that was outside of the scope of their official role. But at Kik, that was my first time working on a team where everybody else was a software engineer. And yeah, I had no choice but to acclimate. So I learned pretty quickly how to do product work the right way. And I built some really fun chatbots during my tenure there, which coincided with the 2016 conversational AI hype wave. The first one that I did was a bot called Makeover Bot, and that was a really, really fun product. Users would upload a selfie and ask for advice, like things like, should I cut bangs or should I dye my hair pink? And the bot would figure out what users to crowdsource advice from and then return that crowdsourced advice to the person who asked. My team and I also built bots for major consumer brands like Sephora and H&M. And through those products, or through those projects rather, I got to do work that I had never done before at all, which was stuff on the business development side. And that was sort of a breakthrough that I wasn't expecting at all. I had never before been drawn to any kind of sales work or any kind of business development work. I'm actually pretty introverted outside of work. And just because of that, because that's my nature, I never thought that that kind of work was for me or that I could be good at it. But it just seemed so foreign and like outside of my wheelhouse. But after getting my feet wet or cutting my teeth or whatever you want to call it, I found that I actually was pretty good at it. And a couple of early successes gave me the confidence that I needed to keep going down the whole doing things outside of the wheelhouse path. So I ended up starting my own company, my first startup in 2017. And today I'm on my second one. I'm still working in the conversational AI space. And it's crazy to think now that I have been in this field for nearly a decade, especially when you consider that I started off as a writer working in print media.
I absolutely love that. I mean, it really just goes to show that you can end up in one place and not have the background to do that. And you can always just pivot. Like, as you said, you found your hidden secrets. As an introvert, you really never thought that business was a place that you'd love. And then you tried it out, even though it was something you totally never knew was for you. And then now, you're thriving and you found something that you truly enjoy. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Of course, like it's really cool to show how, you have hidden secrets and you just have to go out there and like find yours and then you'll hopefully thrive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think that, what we're meant to do, it always finds us. And the faster, I mean, and this is gonna sound very cliche, but when you're following things that you're passionate about and when you're just sort of following your heart, that's when you're going to find your groove in your career.
Absolutely. And my question for you is, what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours? And do you have any tips to succeed?
Yeah. So for anybody who wants to do their own thing and try their hand at a startup, I think that one of the most important things that you must learn is you got to learn how to be uncomfortable. You have to learn how to stay alive. For the most part, there are absolutely no overnight successes, no matter what it appears, no matter what you perceive when you see news announcements and things like that. Everything worthwhile is harder than it looks and takes more time than you think it will. So I guess, a little bit of, I don't know, like, I don't know if tough love is the right way to frame that advice, but I suppose that that's what it is. Another thing is that your network is everything. And the good news is it was what you'll find when if you choose to set off and start your own company, you'll probably be shocked at all of the people that come out of the woodwork wanting to help, which is a beautiful thing. And you'll have more people that are coming out of the woodwork to help, depending on how you've gone about building your relationships at various other stages in your career. At least this is what was true for me. I found that, having built relationships with people that I had worked with, and just people in my field that I had never worked with before, and people that were doing things that I wanted to be doing, all of that served me really well. And I have been extremely lucky to have, been blessed with some of the world's best and most helpful mentors. And those people have, at various points in my career, just been super helpful and lifted me up. And without their support and confidence, I simply would not be where I am today at all.
Yeah, that is so inspiring. I love what you said there, to try to be uncomfortable whenever you can, and that, your network can be your greatest asset because if you stay in one domain or you're in one role and you're really, really happy with it and you're comfortable, you might not get the best growth out of that one job. And, with technology and, STEM, the industry is always changing. Like you might get this one job, you might lose it the next day, but it kind of just like what you get out of it is, the best thing you can do. And the way that you get this is by being uncomfortable and trying new things that, may just be at your door or maybe you have to like go out to find it. And once you become uncomfortable, that's when you find your raw self, and that's when you're more open to learn.
Absolutely. And it's also, developing the very important muscle memory of being able to survive challenging times and being able to like get over really difficult humps. Because it's like if you're going to start your own company, these are just harsh realities that things are never really going to be easy. And that's good because easy is boring. But yes, building the muscle memory and proving to yourself that you can make it through challenging times. Like once you do that a few times, you feel like you can do anything.
I love that. Easy is boring.
Mm.
I'm someone who doesn't really like change, so when we all went to COVID and online, I really didn't like it. But
Yeah.
there were a bunch of pros out there that I didn't know. Like I could connect with so many friends online through Discord, and just have different communities like that. It was something that I truly liked. Um, and just doing something that's out of your comfort zone is something that's super fun as well.
Yeah, I think that what I was saying is that in the world of startups I mean for in any kind of business, when you're trying to start something from nothing and you're in charge of everything, change is really the only constant. And the fact is most people are not comfortable with change. I mean, almost nobody is inherently comfortable with change. It's a muscle that you have to build. And it's not, and it's hard. It's hard for everybody, but it's one of the most rewarding things that you can commit to trying to do. So good on you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then my question for you is, what is a common myth about your profession that you want to debunk?
This is a great question. I love this question. So, there's a common misconception for those who are new to the startup world that fundraising is a sign of success, and it's really not. I mean, it can be, but by itself, isolated, it's just not everything. And there are plenty of people who have managed to raise significant amounts of money because they're actually just really great at that specific kind of sales. But building a successful company, that's a separate endeavor. And I see a lot of newer founders getting discouraged and disillusioned because VCs are not jumping up and down to fund their pre-seed company. And believe me, I have been in these shoes and it's certainly frustrating. But it's important to remember that again, fundraising is not the end game. And just because other people have done it, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're in a better or easier position than you are if you haven't. Another thing that's like a sort of a separate topic, but really, really relevant, just given what's going on today with AI, and given this is the field that I've spent the last 10 years of my life in. I think that some fears surrounding AI are highly overblown. And one of them is the idea that AI is going to render creative work obsolete. I believe that as AI becomes more and more prevalent and mainstream, human creativity and really just the kind of taste and discernment that only humans can offer will continue to become in higher demand. So
Absolutely.
hopefully that's good news for some people.
No, it is really good news because my friends and I, we always go on like Dolly and, ChatGPT 4, and, we just
Yeah.
ask it to like draw me a picture of whatever, whatever. And it's like pretty crazy what ChatGPT can give, but also sometimes there are little errors. Like if we ask to have like a human drawn, like its eyes are going to be like off the screen or something. Like it's pretty crazy. So it just goes to show how there are always mistakes like everywhere in the world. But it's kind of just up to us to fix that. We can't just say like, okay, because it's one innovation, we're not going to be needed anymore. But, creativity is pretty much what drives STEM. And you can't just say
Mm,
that, it's going to be gone now that like STEM is on a different level.
absolutely. And I love what you just said. Creativity absolutely does drive STEM. And I wish that more people would come to terms with that fact because yeah, the world's greatest technical accomplishments are all a result of just a massive amount of creativity. And I think that, you know, whether or not we get AGI in like the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, ever, there will never be a substitute for the human brain. There just won't.
And my question for you is, what are the best resources slash books that have helped you find your career path?
Great question. Um, I think that the best and most helpful book that I read as I was ramping up my first startup was one that's called Good in a Room. The author is named Stephanie Palmer. That one really helped me as I was, again, building my first startup and finding myself in zillions of meetings where I was pitching my company in some capacity, whether it was to investors or to prospective customers. And now that I'm talking about that book, I realize how much I got out of it and the fact that it's been 7 or so years since I last read it. I'm going to read that one again. I highly, highly recommend it, especially for people who, like me, consider themselves introverts and are just less natural when it comes to like doing those kinds of things. Again, it's called Good in a Room. And the other one that immediately comes to mind is called Crucial Conversations. That's like about having difficult conversations and how to step up when it comes time for those. And again, you're doing your own business, you're running your own startup, you're going to find yourself at some point, hopefully not super often, but you're going to find yourself having to have some difficult conversations with your employees, with investors, with customers. Like things are just going to go wrong. And again, that's another constant that we can count on. And having the confidence to be able to deal with those moments is everything. And another one that uh, I found really, really helpful, and again, would highly recommend for people like me who just didn't grow up knowing that they were going to be out there selling things, is a book called How to Sell Anything to Anybody. Yeah, those are three recommendations.
I love those. I mean, I would classify myself as an ambivert because I'm an
Mm,
introvert sometimes, but I don't know, like when I'm with people I know, I'm the most extroverted person in the room. But if they're like
yeah,
strangers, I'm typically an introvert, so I will definitely check out those books.
yeah, yeah. That I can relate to that too. I mean, I think that yeah, when I'm around my close friends, I'm not shy, but I get very shy and I easily intimidated even um, when I'm around new people in a business setting. And that just, I don't think that it ever really goes away, to be honest. And that's a good thing. I think that that's kind of part of what keeps us humble. And being humble and having humility is, of course, a valued trait, no matter what Silicon Valley leads us to believe.
Absolutely. And my question for you is, what do you think is the vital factor that shaped your career? What was your life before learning this, and what was your life after learning it?
Great question. So, my career really took off once I became, again, willing to be uncomfortable and really to just let go of my fears of looking stupid or being judged, or really about caring what other people think whatsoever. And again, this is an ongoing process. This is not something that comes easily for me. I don't think it's something that comes easily for most people, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, my career, again, it started, things started to happen. The magic started to happen when I became comfortable with, being the new and inexperienced one in the room. Like for us women in particular, especially when we're younger, but ironically, also when we're not super young, people will tend to put us into certain boxes or buckets of classification. And it's all too easy for us to internalize that and to believe the stories that other people are sort of foisting onto us and to tell ourselves that we can only be this one thing because it just doesn't make sense to be many different things. And what I've learned is that often other people will project their own limitations onto you, especially when you're a woman. And like that's just human nature. That's other people's business. You just have to learn to tune it out. But it's really, really important that you do learn to tune it out because um, the stories that you tell yourself are vitally important to your mental well-being and to your abilities to succeed.
100%. And I think something that's very interesting is that a lot of people can be jealous by your determination. So I have some old friends who would get kind of sad, but like sad in a weird way because I didn't know what jealousy looked like as a kid. So I would just like label it as a sad emotion. And it was because I would tell them like my secrets or like my fun things or things that I aspire to be. And I don't know, they would just feel a little bit jealous. And I just slowly realized that as I grew up, that that was jealousy. And people around you are gonna be like, oh my gosh, she's thinking to do this, but like I don't want to do that, so we'll just project, my feelings onto them. And it's just an inherent, human nature. So you just gotta, as you said, tune it out.
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
yeah, like because we don't really know that someone's gonna project themselves on us until like start saying like bad things, like they, deter you from whatever you want to do. So just remember that you are the only person who can control yourself and you have the power to become the best version of yourself.
That's right. And don't let anybody project their limitations onto you. Like again, that's their business. And most of the time, people don't even realize that they're doing this, but it's important to be aware of for sure.
Absolutely. And because we have some additional time, my question for you is what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career path?
I wish I would have known that like nobody really ever 100% knows what they're doing. Everybody, no matter how confident they appear to be, is figuring things out as they go. Unless, of course, they're doing something that's just really boring. But that's fine because I think, in my opinion, figuring things out is actually the fun part. But I think that for a lot of people, when you're young in your career, um, you see people who carry themselves with a certain level of confidence and you think like, oh my god, they know everything, when am I going to know everything? And it's like, never, you're never going to know everything, and that's fine. Again, figuring things out is the fun part for me. If whenever I mean There's been a few moments in my career where I found myself like at sort of a crossroads where I'm no longer in a position where I'm even able to figure things out or able to learn new things. And that's for me when it's time to find something else to do. So yeah, again,
Absolutely.
the hard part is the fun part, I guess is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
And what you said before this, like early in the beginning of the episode, like everything that's easy can be perceived as being boring. So, as soon as it starts to be easy, maybe it's time to switch things up.
hmm
All right. And my last question for you before we end off, it's how do you continue to learn in order to stay on top of things within your role?
Yeah, well, I think that, what we just talked about sort of speaks to this, right? Because it's really important that we're always finding ways to challenge ourselves in our career. And like it's not hard to do that when you're running your own business, but even when you're working for another company, finding ways to keep leveling up often entails, adding responsibilities to your position and just trying, like, telling your boss that you want to work on things that are outside of your job description that you maybe don't necessarily have experience in doing. Any opportunities that you have to do things like that and to get new experiences, take them. You're not going to like all of them. You're probably not going to be good at everything. Most people are not good at everything, but it's really helpful to figure out, as you move up in your career, the things that you want to be doing and like the things that you don't want to be doing. That's paramount. um, Other than that, you know reading and staying abreast of what's going on in whatever industry you're in are highly recommended. Um, Controversial take, but a lot of really interesting conversations happen on Elon Musk's Twitter, which I guess is called X now. But especially if you work in tech, there are still a lot of great minds that congregate there. And I feel like a lot of breaking tech news takes place there. I'm not super active there. I'm more of a lurker because, again, introvert. But yeah, I think that aside from all of that, the best learning and education always comes from doing. So in any way that you can. I think that it's important to, try to get your feet in the door wherever you can to do new things.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Liz, for being on this show with me. Before we end off, do you have any last words to the audience?
No, thank you so much for having me. This has been a really fun conversation, and I love what you're doing with this podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Liz. I absolutely love talking to you, and I hope you have the best rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
And here are my 3 cents on this episode with Liz. 1. Finding your specialty through persistence. Discover your unique specialty often requires pushing through challenges and uncertainty. The journey to identifying your niche involves experimentation, failure, and resilience. 2. Creativity as a driving force in STEM. Creativity is essential in STEM fields during innovation and problem solving. It plays a crucial role in developing new technologies, scientific discoveries, and solutions to complex problems. And 3. Networks as valuable assets. Building and maintaining networks are invaluable for personal and professional growth. Your network can provide support, opportunities, knowledge, and resources that are crucial for success. Thus, that concludes the episode for this week. If you want to know more about how I relate to these amazing topics, then stay tuned for upcoming episodes. A free way to support this show is by leaving it a 5-star rating and a review on the player you are listening to. Let me know what you enjoy about this podcast, as it's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. Once again, thank you for finding me, and I hope we stay in touch with each other. Zito, you're listening to Aarna Sahu, the host of Aarna's News. Toodles!